Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another conversation with Marty Ross MD tonight. I'm talking with you from my home in Seattle, Washington, and we actually have sunshine. It's actually kind of interesting looking out there and seeing it. We actually have a nice view of the Space Needle from here as well, too. And the sun will go away soon because we're in Seattle. And we still have these shorter days, given how far north we are. So it's good to be here with you tonight. I look forward to seeing what y'all have in store with your questions for me. As many of you know, none of these webinars is ever the same. We actually create them with your questions. And it's interesting to me because you all write your questions independently, but sometimes we even get into a question theme of the night. So we'll see if that happens tonight as well, too. I am recording tonight's webinar, so if you happen to miss something, you want to listen to it again, you can do so tomorrow morning. My intention is that I'll have an edited version of the video done somewhere around 9:30 in the morning, and then email it out to you with links that you can watch it on YouTube. If you watch it on YouTube, there's timestamps, and I create a summary that you can use to skip forward to the sections that you want to do that on. One thing I'd appreciate, when you get that email tomorrow morning, share it with people that you think might have benefit. I do these to help as many people as possible, and so help me be my ambassadors out there to help me reach people on this. Okay. For those of you that have not participated here before, let me just briefly talk about how you can do so. Number one, you could pay attention and listen in on the questions as I read them. And then you can also see the answers. And so you may learn some things just with those discussions. Secondly, you could write a question to me, and you would do that by writing in the chat box on I think it's the right-hand side. I actually need my presentation on my screen, I think is different than yours, but it's somewhere at the bottom, I believe. All right. And then let's see here. What else do I need to let you know? Oh, so this is the first of 3 webinars that we'll be doing in a row for the month of February. Okay. And I know the last thing I was going to say, I never get through all the questions. All right. So if you happen to be missed, it's not because I intentionally missed you. I want to be clear about that. I try to get through as many things as we can, and we'll do that again tonight as well, too. All right. And then lastly, I do read the questions out loud, but if you happen to be in the recorded version or in the live version, and not listening in on the recorded version, you actually get to see those questions posted on your screen. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started here. Hello, Jackie. Let's see. I take my pill supplements with meals. Can you give recommendations on taking liquid supplements with regard to timing before, after meals? Cryptolepis, Japanese knotweed, liposomal glutathione. Okay, so liposomal glutathione, it really doesn't matter whether you take it with or without meals. It is already manufactured in a way and produced in a way that it's made to get absorbed regardless of what you have it with. So what liposomal means is that the glutathione, the substance glutathione, is microscopically wrapped in fat, and that increases its absorption. And the reason that's important is glutathione is just terribly absorbed, right? So for those of you that don't know about glutathione, many of you do, it's the main detox chemical that's used by the liver to detox fatty substances out. It's also manufactured in every one of our cells. It's a very powerful antioxidant that is made by cells to fix damage, the damage of living, the damage of being a cell, all right? And then I like using it as part of tick-borne infections to help both with repair of your energy power plants called mitochondria. And I also like using it as part of my program to control inflammation chemicals that make you feel sick in these disorders called cytokines. Okay, so that's what I like using it for. Many of you know I talk about a product for this based on its absorption data that I think is the best product out there. It's made by Research Nutritionals. It's called Tri-Fortify. And the reason I like it, again, they've done the research to show that they have a really well-absorbed product. Most companies, I don't think, can compete with them. All right, so they've got the data to show it too. All right. Now, regarding your cryptolepis Japanese knotweed tinctures, those are your herbal antibiotics. Those are created by taking plants and putting them in alcohol. All right. And these, the brand I recommend is a Montana Pharmacy brand. That's the pharmacies with an Farmacy. They're made out of far north up in Montana near the border in the northwest part of the state. And I believe it's called Eureka, if I remember correctly. And they're small hand batches, and I think they're doing a great job with their product. All right. The 5-to-1, so it's made with 5-part alcohol and 1 part plant. That's how the extraction is done. And then all these active chemicals are absorbed into the alcohol, and that's where they sit. And then you're using an alcohol tincture, all right? So alcohol tinctures are probably best absorbed on an empty stomach. And I'm going to clarify what I just said there, though. Okay, I said best absorbed on an empty stomach, which would probably mean taking them at least 2 hours after other things you might have had, or no sooner than a half hour before you have a meal, basically. So that's having, so you don't want to have it and be absorbed and mixed in with food, in theory. Okay, now, what I will tell you is this. I know in theory, these things are better absorbed if you don't take them with other medicines, or if you don't, if you take them on an empty stomach. But the reality is that's hard to do. And so I usually advise most of my patients to just go ahead and take it with food if you want to. I tend not to see any difference in how they function and the effectiveness of them. Part of the reason to take them with food as well is that, especially the cryptolepis can be kind of nauseating. It's a very strong tasting herb. Those of you that use it, it's a very strong tasting herb. So sometimes it's more palatable to take it with food. Japanese Knotweed, I think, is a little bit more tolerable. But anyhow, those are my thoughts. So ideally, on an empty stomach. So that means don't take it closer than 30 minutes before you eat, or try to take it at least 2 hours after you've had other things in your stomach, or except water's okay. That's ideally, but ideal is hard to do in this disorder when you're taking all kinds of other supplements too. So if you need to take it with food, go ahead. Or if you need to take it with other supplements, except your probiotic, don't take it with your probiotic because it might kill it, okay? But except for the probiotic, probiotics generally should be taken as far away from any herbal or prescription antibiotics as possible. As far away. Whatever that works out in your schedule is far away. So if you take a product in the morning that kills things and a product in the evening that kills things, take your probiotic in the middle of the day, okay? That's an example of that, all right? All right. Good luck to you, Jackie. Hello, Jim. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thanks again for these great webinars. You're welcome. I have been taking Methylene Blue 40 milligrams twice a day and diflucan 150 milligram daily for a year now for mostly Bartonella, but also Borrelia. I've had trouble handling diflucan at 200 milligrams a day, which is why it's 150. This protocol has helped, but hasn't solved the problem. How long is it okay to stay on this protocol? I've heard Methylene Blue might cause mitochondrial issues if taken for too long. Is this true? Do you think I could switch to tolerating something else at this point? All right. So many of you may know, this protocol that Jim is talking about is one of my favorite protocols. If you read my Bartonella guide at treatlyme.com, I'll show that to you here in a minute. That it's one of those ones that I really feature. I feature this protocol. So how did I get the idea to do this? Well, Methylene Blue has got some laboratory data from about 5 years ago now at Johns Hopkins. Johns Hopkins was investigating to see what do we do about these hibernating forms of Bartonella and these hibernating forms of Borrelia. We call those hibernators persisters. They make up maybe 10, 15, 20% of the germs in you. Most of the other Bartonella or Borrelia germs are growing. So we're talking about growth states here, okay? But Methylene Blue in the laboratory was found to be quite effective at treating growing and persister Bartonella. The Hopkins experiments only looked at whether it did something for persister Borrelia, but clinically, I think it's working on growing Borrelia as well too. All right, so it's really good. It's actually in their experiments was a great Bartonella biofilm buster as well too. All right, so that's where I got that idea. And then the diflucan. So in the Hopkins experiments, they chose to use one representative of each antimicrobial family. So for instance, there's the tetracyclines, and a member of the tetracycline family is doxycycline, all right? So for the azoles, which is fluconazole is an azole, they chose to use something called clotrimazole, which is a substance used for vaginal yeast infections. It's a cream, or for skin infections. It's not very well absorbed. And so, that thing had a whopping kill in the laboratory experiments too. So I decided to start thinking, at first I wasn't using any azoles at all for my Bartonella treatments. And then I finally thought, wait a minute, what about fluconazole? And what about itraconazole? All right. So those are two anti-yeast members of this azole family, and also antifungal members as well too. And so I started seeing good results. And I know a number of my colleagues around that same time were starting to do this too. What I have found when I believe even there's a person here tonight that is going to probably smile when I'm not going to mention her name because that would be violate privacy standards. But one of my clients basically we did put her on Methylene Blue. We did put her on fluconazole, but she had the biggest changes after we pulled her off the diflucan, and we wound up putting her on itraconazole instead. All right. And for her, that was the game changer. So fluconazole, Methylene Blue did a great job. It brought her forward. But the game changer is when we switched out that fluconazole diflucan for itraconazole. So that might be something you might want to consider doing that, okay? Make that one change and see if it will start bringing things forward for you. Other things to keep in mind when you're treating Bartonella is there's other supportive things that are very important to do. Number one, we think Bartonella has the ability to wrap itself up in your blood clotting protein called fibrin, and it creates these things called fibrin nest. And in these fibrin nests, it basically is wrapped up in fibrin, and the fibrin and the germs get stuck up against your blood vessel walls where they kind of hide from the immune system and your antibiotics, okay? So we want to break down the fibrin in those fibrin nests. And so I like using lumbrokinase to do that. There's two different products that I know I carry at my store. One is a 20 milligram product that's called Baluki, and there's a allergy research lumbrokinase product that's 16 milligrams. I think either one could be used though, all right? And I usually have people try to get it at least one time a day if they can tolerate taking 2 pills at once or 1 pill twice a day. I recommend that as well too. As you start it, don't try to go right to 2, because sometimes as you start stripping off the fibrin nest, you get quite a Herxheimer reaction as well too, all right? The other advantage of lumbrokinase is it also helps remove one of the other barriers that happens when you have Bartonella, and that is we know Bartonella can grow a biofilm slime layer over it. Now, the Methylene Blue can help break that down, but in addition, the lumbrokinase helps break those down too, okay? All right. The second thing I like to do when people are having a hard time moving forward, another thing I like to do in addition to lumbrokinase for biofilms and Methylene Blue is I like using a more complex set of herbs that are found, that are a group of enzymes that help further enzymes and actually antimicrobials that break down biofilm. And those can be found in a product called BioDisrupt by Research Nutritionals. I usually use that as 2 pills twice a day in addition to the lumbrokinase. Okay. All right. Now let me clarify. So there's no research about whether BioDisrupt is helpful in Bartonella. So I don't want to make a disease claim about BioDisrupt, but the ingredients in it can support the breakdown of biofilms. And so I have found it clinically useful in my practice as well too. All right. And then finally, something that I started adding in to my regimens and recommending over a year ago, a year and a half ago now, I guess, in a support group that I was running during that dark period when I wasn't seeing people clinically a year and a half ago. I started advising that people start trying to do vascular repair to fix some of the damages that Bartonella can cause. So Bartonella lives in the cells that line one of the places it lives is in the cells that line your blood vessels. We call those the endothelial cells, okay? And there's between the blood flow and the endothelial cells is another layer of mucousy stuff called the endothelial glycocalyx. Now, this mucousy membrane has a bunch of little filaments that stick up into the blood flow. And as blood hits these filaments, it triggers the manufacture within the endothelial glycocalyx and endothelium of nitric oxide. And nitric oxide dilates your blood vessels, and it's anti-inflammatory. Well, anything that disrupts your endothelium, like an infection in the endothelium, has a likelihood, a great chance of injuring the endothelial glycocalyx, okay? So knowing that, I started suggesting to my patients or my people that were in my support group and now my patients, I like having people take something called rhaman sulfate, which is an extract from a seaweed called Monastrum nitidum. I like all these strange names. But anyhow, you want to take one pill twice a day. Those ingredients are found in a product called itraconazole by a company called Calroy Health Sciences. And those are things that I do. If you want to read more about it, you can read the product pages I have about it at my store. And that actually, the people reported some good improvements with that too. So don't forget to do the support things that can move your treatment along. Okay. And then finally, methylene blue actually doesn't hurt mitochondria. It actually helps mitochondria. So one of the things that there's a process within mitochondria called, I'll just call it, it's called the electron transport chain. Okay. And basically what it involves is moving an electron from one protein group to another protein group to another protein group. And in that process of electron transfer, there is energy created that gets turned into this substance called ATP, which is our dollar bill, if you will, for mitochondria energy, all right? Two of the protein complexes that these electrons transfer between sometimes get injured, and you get blocked electron transfer. Well, guess what methylene blue is? It's a great electron transporter. So it can actually patch that injury. And so I haven't seen anything that said using it too long actually hurts your mitochondria. If anything, it can help fix some of these damaged areas, or at least patch them, if you will. Okay, all right. So I think... Yeah, so what I would suggest, if I was saying, I think you keep on that methylene blue. I have no problem using it longer term. My next suggestion would be look at that, substituting out that diflucan for itraconazole, 200 milligrams a day. Look at adding in the rhaman sulfate found in a product called arterisol. Look at adding in better biofilm support found in a product called Biodisrupt. And don't forget your lumbrokinase. Okay. All right. Whew, that's a lot of stuff. Good luck to you, Jim. One thing I'm just going to do a quick screen share here, everyone. Let's see here. Okay, so this is my Lyme information site, Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD. If you're looking for where you can find products I talk about, you can just look under my supplements tab here, okay? But if you want to just see what do I say about it, just write the name in up here. So the arterisol that I was talking about is this product, okay? I've had some good improvements with that. The Biodisrupt is this product here, all right? Now, many of you may be familiar with the fact that I no longer sell supplements to you, but I do have a partnership with a company called Phimologist. They're a supplement store, and they're now providing the supplements that I recommend, okay? So I just don't want everybody confused. If you click on one of my buy buttons, it says not clickbait. This is intentional. They're doing a better job of serving people than what I was, all right? And I've come to trust them really well. So you would click on this and get brought over to their store. And this is what the landing page looks like over at their store. And if you click through one of my products, you're going to get a discount, a 10% discount. And then basically everything I recommend is right here for you. Okay. All right. All right. Let's go back. Oh, one last thing I was going to show you here. So I mentioned my Bartonella protocol. So if you're looking to see what that is, you can look under the infection plans, and somewhere in here, this is the article. It's called The Ultimate Bartonella Management Guide. Okay. All right. All right. Let's move on here. Hello, Joyce. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thank you for being our hero in this dreadful Lyme world. You're welcome. I wish I didn't have to be a hero, but it's good. It's good to help you all out. Let's see. Please give an overview of lumbrokinase Maluki versus nattokinase for serapeptase with examples of when you need each of these for Lyme co-infections recovery. I got the 3Bs from a tick bite in 2001, but not fully diagnosed in 2016 in Connecticut. Moved to Arizona in 2017 until 24, no tick exposure. Back on the East Coast, North Carolina since July 24, and I believe I've been bitten again. Some of the old symptoms, primarily Bartonella, have resurfaced, especially pain in my feet, plus now joint pain in my hands and wrist, as well as intense itching up and down the spine. Should I get all new blood panels? I'm currently taking cryptolepis, Japanese knotweed. Other than sleep, which has been a big issue for several months now, I lead a holistic lifestyle. Thank you, as always, Joyce. All right, so there's a number of things to just talk about in here. So first of all, let me see here. All right, so when it comes to enzymes that break down the fibrin nest, I'm going to just start with there. My preference is lumbrokinase. I've looked at this before. I know a number of my colleagues, we all claim that lumbrokinase is stronger, but there's actually there are no studies that have done head-to-head looking at what is stronger, lumbrokinase, serapeptase, or nattokinase, okay? But generally, I think most of our perceptions, and this is doctors that work with these, the perception is that the strongest is lumbrokinase, followed by nattokinase, followed by serapeptase. And a general impression, depending on who you read and even my experience, is that the lumbrokinase may be up to about 100 times stronger than the nattokinase. All right. The only time that I might add in, and then, as you know, I was talking earlier tonight about this product called BioDisrupt. One of the enzymes that it has in it is serapeptase. And as you heard me just mention, sometimes I think it's okay to take that to break apart biofilm. So a combination of serapeptase and lumbrokinase, I think, can be a stronger way to go at biofilm, for instance, okay? I know that my colleague, Dr. Harry Lindner, Dr. Lindner's the doctor that discovered and promotes the idea that a lot of Babesia out there is something called Babesia oticoli. He's been able to work with many of us to help us understand that one of the things that makes Babesia oticoli tricky is it also wraps itself up in fibrin. And in his most difficult cases, what he likes to do is definitely get people on lumbrokinase, but he has found improved benefits in people that are stuck to actually go with both nattokinase and lumbrokinase. I have to admit, I haven't tried those two together, but I know that I just reflecting what his experience is as I've spent some time talking with him about that. Okay. All right. So I hope that gives you some information there. In terms of the Bartonella, if you want to make that a stronger management, antimicrobial management, the cryptolepis, you could run that all the way up to a half teaspoon twice or 3 times a day. The knotweed, you can run up to 30 drops 2 times a day. And then I also like to combine both of those with liposomal cinnamon, clove, oregano. Those essential oils kind of get at the Bartonella in a different way, okay? So I have found, I think if you read my Bartonella management guide, you'll see that I say the best treatments are either diflucan methylene blue or working with the combination of cryptolepis, knotweed, and cinnamon clove oregano, liposomal cinnamon clove oregano. Okay. All right. Now, figuring out if your germs are active is an imperfect world. And it's there may or may not be any utility in doing some blood tests. Now, let me try to, this is where it gets tricky. So if you've done antibody testing in the past that revealed you had Bartonella, and the same argument would hold with Babesia and would hold with Borrelia as well too. So antibody testing would either be an IFA, a Western blot, or an immunoblot. If your test came back positive through one of those methods, retesting for antibodies, in my opinion, is not helpful, because they may or may not be there. If they may still be there because you had old infection and have nothing to do with a new infection. So it's not a reliable way of looking. Okay. Another way to approach this would be to do a type of test called an elispot test. We can call an elispot a T cell reaction test. So T cells are what attack germs in your body. And we have a way to look and see, have they, the ones circulating in your blood right now, have they recently tried to attack Bartonella or a Borrelia or a Babesia? And that's called an elispot. And essentially what's done during the test is you take a test, you take your blood, we pull all the white blood cell or T white blood cells in your blood, put them in a test tube. We introduce into the test tube some proteins from the germ we're trying to test for. And then we see, do your T cells make cytokines? That's what we're looking for, a pattern of cytokines, okay? And so it's called a T cell reaction test. Here's the limitations on that test. Well, here's the good side. So your circulating T cells only live for 2 months. And so if your T cells, in theory, have seen or tried to attack these germs within the last 2 months, and it's positive, that means that probably it's in you, okay? Here's the downside of it. Infecto Lab, who's doing that test here in the States, and also Armin Lab, have some shortages on their tests, and here's what the shortfalls are. So on the for Borrelia, they're only, well, actually, as a whole, elispot testing is only about 85% sensitive, meaning when you use it to detect something, it has an 85% chance of finding if it's there. And I'm just giving you what elispots in general do. The trouble is, Infecto Lab and Armin have never done sensitivity testing on their actual products to see how accurate they are. But as an industry, elispot testing will miss things about 15% of the time. So that's the problem on the Borrelia side, okay? On the Bartonella side, Armin and Infecto Lab are only testing against Bartonella henselae, but we think there may be 15 strains, right? So a negative elispot does not mean you don't have it, especially on the Bartonella side, all right? And I know they claim cross-reactivity, but I don't think the data fully supports that, okay? All right. And then Babesia, Infecto Lab, I believe, is doing both Babesia microti and Babesia decani. Armin, I think, is just microti, if I'm correct. But again, with Babesia, we think there may be 15 strains of Babesia. So they're not testing for everything that can happen, okay? But you could try an elispot. If it comes back positive, then yeah, that probably means the germ is still in you, okay? But negative doesn't mean it's not in you. Okay, and then finally, the other way you could go about doing this would be to do a type of microscope test called a FISH test, which both IGeneX offers a Bartonella and a Babesia fish, and then a lab called T Labs by Dr. Bob Mosignani is doing a microscope exam, which is a FISH test as well too, all right? The problem with FISH testing is that you need to, when you draw that blood, you hope that the germs that are in you are in that blood allotment, but they may not be. In fact, Bartonella doesn't tend to live in the blood. It tends to live inside endothelial cells and other tissue. So you have a sampling error issue. And again, for these tests, we don't know how sensitive they are at finding an infection. Neither has T-Lab done any sensitivity, and even I would say IGeneX has not done sensitivity on their fish test, okay? So we have questions about how accurate they are at finding it, all right? So ultimately, because of all this testing inconsistency, what I like to do is just go by what the symptoms tell me. If it looks symptomatically in somebody that's had this before, like things have come back, I'll go after it. That's what my approach is, okay? But sometimes I'll do elispots. If somebody says, I just need a little more proof, I'll do it. But I warn them of the inadequacy of elispot testing, okay? And also the inadequacy of doing these fish tests as well, too. All right? I hope that gives you the answer. All right. Good luck to you, Joyce. Hello, Gary. Let's see. I was approved via insurance for a very expensive injection medicine called Xolair. I am borderline alpha-gal positive, but have had hives, rash, and neurosymptoms. Could be MCA, MCAS, BART, or alpha-gal. I'm back on azithromycin, methylene blue, LDN, ketotifen, lumbrokinase, cryptolepis. Would you recommend I try Xolair? Hold on a little bit here. Just let me look that up. I have to look up the drug, so just a minute. I haven't used it before, so I just want to see how it works. Oh, it's one of the biologics. So biologics basically are substances that target a specific inflammation chemical or a specific inflammation chemical receptor, okay? You know, I don't think you're going to hurt yourself. I mean, basically it's for allergic type conditions like urticaria, asthma, nasal polyps. Those are the kind of things it's used for. Let me just see another thing here. I mean, it's another way of controlling the allergic type reaction. I don't know that it's going to give you help in this situation. If you have alpha-gal, the main way to approach that is just to avoid mammalian meats as well as mammal products like milk, for instance, okay? And the thinking is with alpha-gal, which is everyone's an allergy to a sugar that gets transmitted from, we think, the Lone Star tick, and maybe there's some other ticks that transmit it too. And the sugar is called alpha-galactose, which is also found in red meat and in milk products, all right? So sometimes when that tick bites you, especially the Lone Star, and it transmits the alpha-gal, you get an allergic reaction, and your body learns to become allergic to it, but not only to that, from what came from the tick, but wherever that alpha-gal is found. But often in 1 or 2 years of avoidance, and I know that's a long time, your immune system can learn not to be as reactive, okay? All right? So I'm not clear that it's going to fully make a difference there, because what you really want to be doing, so you don't have to be on stuff forever for alpha-gal, is just avoid, just get your immune system retrained in a sense. And then in terms of mast cell activation, which could be part of this, yeah, I see that you're on to ketotifen and LDN. Those are good choices. So ketotifen, everyone, is and has two functions. It is a mast cell stabilizer, and it also is a histamine blocker. So it's a histamine blocker like Zyrtec is a histamine blocker, okay? And your mast cells are where allergy chemicals like histamines are made, and it stabilizes them from releasing. A dose, it has to be compounded because it's only manufactured for allergy eye drops, but you can turn it into a pill. And usually a good starting dose, about 1 milligram twice a day. Some people have success going up to 2 milligrams twice a day. Low dose naltrexone, the LDN, can be useful in stabilizing mast cells because it actually, the naltrexone binds to something called a toll receptor on your mast cells, and it can stabilize them as well too. One other thing I might consider doing in a situation like this is I definitely want to look to see, is there anything else stimulating your allergy system? So things that turn on your mast cells, a big one is mold toxicity can do it. Too many yeast in your intestines. I always want to check by questions and figure out, does somebody have too many yeast turning on their whole mast cell system? And then your tick infections as well too. Those are the big ones. All right. Sometimes people get food allergies and food sensitivities, and if they are, they're going to tickle the mast cells. So sometimes you have to pull out things that people are sensitive to as well. And then finally, sometimes I'd like to add to this kind of a mix that you're on a peptide called KPV that has some ability to stabilize mast cells. And that is, there's a product I like using made by Integrated Peptides, that's their KPV. And I have found benefits in using that as well too. You can even add it into this kind of a combination if you're having hesitancy about going to the Xolair. That would be my preference actually over a Xolair. Okay. All right. Now I want to just do a screen share here, everyone. All right. So for those of you that are not familiar with mast cell activation syndrome and all the different things you can do to help control it, we're going to look in my immune system chapter here, and I have a video guide on how to do it, and I also have an article I've written about it. And in this article, I talk about the symptoms you can get with it. I talk about you have to kind of rely more on symptoms rather than testing. And then the key step, I should have mentioned this. So one of the big things to control your mast cells is to de-stress. Stress is like one of the biggest antagonists or stimulators of your mast cell. So whatever it is that you need to do de-stress, whether it's doing box breathing when you get stressed, box breathing would be like breathe in for a count of 3 or 4, hold it for 3 or 4, then breathe out for 3 or 4. Hold it for 3 or 4 and breathe in again. That's called box breathing. It's a good way of bringing down stress. Meditate could be good. Exercise can be good if you can do that. Okay. Remove things you're allergic to. That's why I was talking about food allergies. Get your infections out, get the toxins out. Curcumin can help to a degree. Be on antihistamines. So that would be the ketotifen. Be on a mast cell stabilizer. That would be the ketotifen. Quercetin's good. You could also try the KPV I was telling you about and the LDN. Okay. Some people find benefit from a low histamine diet as well too. Okay. All right. And then let me just see here. And so then this is the KPV product I recommend. There is a liquid version, but the liquid version has some chemicals added to give it a better taste, if you will. And I have found that to be problematic. Okay. One other issue, if you do consider using KPV as part of a mast cell, it may have weak antibiotic or antimicrobial properties. And so sometimes when people start it, they get a Herx reaction, which you don't want to have happen. Okay. So usually I'm going to have people start it at 1 pill a day or maybe even 1/2 pill a day until I can test out how sensitive they're going to be on it first. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Gary. Hello, Joan. Let's see, dear Dr. Ross. Question 1. What are your thoughts on using homemade nasal sprays for mycotoxin treatment when pharmaceutical nasal sprays are not available? For example, using saline plus essential oils as per Dr. Joe Christa, or using saline plus golden root extract. Question 2. How long on average nasal would nasal sprays be used to rid of mycotoxin spores? As always, I appreciate your insight. Thanks. So when it comes to, in my practice, for about 20% of people, even after they get their mold out of their home, they're no longer being poisoned by toxins in their home. And even after we put them on binders for about 6 months or so to remove mold toxins, maybe even a year, about 20% of people do not show good progress. And it's in those 20% of people that I do add in antifungals to kill mold spores that might have colonized their nose or colonized their intestines and be producing then the mold toxins, okay? So I want to be clear. I know there's a lot of my colleagues out there that right away when they get a positive mold toxin test back, instead of focusing on cleaning the house out and being on binders in the person, they right away knee jerk and put somebody on antifungal nose sprays and antifungal for the intestines, right? And I think for majority of people that's not needed. And in fact, 80% of the people I have treated in my practice for mold toxicity, I never do any antifungals because most people do not get colonized by mold spores when they live in a moldy environment. Most people, the issue with mold toxicity is that they breathed in the toxins from their environment and those toxins got trapped in them, but they didn't coincidentally also breathe in mold spores that got trapped in them. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right, I know you're going to read many different things on the internet and people talk about different ways. And even Jill Kristen, talking with her, her preference is usually not right away to put, at least in conversation with me. I don't know what she says. I haven't seen what she says on her groups at all, but she would fall into that camp of not necessarily doing them. Neil Nathan also, for people that are fresh to doing this, meaning they haven't been treated before, is not necessarily going to rush to doing antifungals with them either. Okay, now let's say you are 6 months, 9 months into a treatment, your toxin levels are not falling, you're living in a clean environment. Then I start wondering, could it be colonization? And at that point, I will use nose sprays and I also use tablets. In terms of prescriptions, I like using itraconazole to work on the intestines, but also some of that does get absorbed through the bloodstream and get into the sinuses. And then I like using either nystatin, amphotericin, or itraconazole nose sprays, okay? An alternative could be to use herbal antifungals. And frankly, we don't have as much experience. I know Jill uses these quite a bit just because she's a naturopath and that tends to be where she goes first. I would have no problem with somebody trying essential oils. I think it makes sense. Essential oil nose sprays. Even the golden seal root makes sense. As to whether it's going to be effective, I don't know. I know she's got a lot more experience doing that than I do, and it would make sense they could work. For the intestines, I would use things I might use to treat intestinal yeast overgrowth because they're going to be antifungal as well too. So my preference, if I'm going to try to do something that's going to be an herbal antifungal to get at mold spore colonization in the intestines, I might use something that has some garlic in it, some caprylic acid, and also some oregano oil. Those are found in a product called Capri Plus by Karuna. That's Karuna, Karuna. And that usually I have people take a couple pills twice a day on that. Okay. All right. Hope that gives you some insight. Oh, then finally, how long? If you're colonized, it can be kind of hard, but usually at least 6 months. Sometimes we have to go about a year, believe it or not. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Joan. Hello, Cheryl. Hello, Dr. Ross. I'm hoping to get your insights on something that has been going on for me. I tested positive for Marcons and completed 2 rounds of gentamicin nasal spray, but unfortunately it didn't seem to help. When I retested, the Marcons were still present. And now the culture is also showing enterococcus bacterial infection. Given your experience treating patients with Lyme and complex infections, do you have any recommendations on what the next step might be or alternative approaches that tend to be ineffective in situations like this? I would truly appreciate any guidance you offer. Okay, so I do not treat Marcons. I know that you're probably thinking that's heresy, but let me talk about that. And actually, the viewpoint that I'm going to express here is also Dr. Nathan is in the same camp here as well too, and even I believe that Dr. Krista is in the same camp too. So let's talk about it. Okay, so as many of you know, the godfather, the guy that discovered mold toxicity, is a physician named Dr. Richie Shoemaker. And Dr. Shoemaker had a theory that people would be very inflamed because they had mold toxins in them. And so he was doing things to remove mold toxins. And he did, the way he would determine they might have mold toxins is if he did blood testing for certain inflammatory markers, and he did a genetic profile test on them. If they had a predisposition genetically to developing, not removing mold spores, and then if they had certain inflammation markers, he called that mold toxicity, okay? Without actually ever testing to see if they had mold toxins in them. He just called that all mold toxicity. Well, keep in mind, if you have chronic tick-borne infections, they can trigger the same, they may trigger the same pattern of inflammatory chemicals, right? And Dr. Shoemaker does not believe in chronic Lyme disease. He used to at one time. He used to be a member of ILADS and everything. He used to come to the meetings and all, but over time, he stopped believing in it, okay? So what happened with Shoemaker then is when people wouldn't get better, he came up with a theory. Well, it must be something else that's leading to all this inflammation. And he started looking at the nose passages and came up with this theory that there's this bacteria in there called methicillin-resistant coagulase negative staph, or is it strep? Anyhow, Marcons, all right? And that it must be the Marcons keeping them all inflamed. Well, again, I think he's missing the big picture that for many people, it's their chronic tick-borne infections that's keeping them all inflamed, all right? So I used to earlier in my, in working with mold toxicity, I did try the whole Shoemaker protocol. And so what you're supposed to do in Shoemaker, if you're still inflamed, the next step is look for Marcons. If it's there, try to clear it out. And if you are able to, and the person is still inflamed, then you're supposed to do some other anti-inflammatory processes. And you can work your way all the way down here. Eventually you can get a nasal spray of something called VIP, all right? But the truth is, if you have chronic tick-borne infections, you've got other things that are flaring you up. So that's what needs to be dealt with. And in my practice, although I could get Marcons to go away most of the time, not all the time, it inevitably always comes back, all right? So it's damn near hard to get rid of, and it's damn near hard to keep gone. And even when I would get rid of it, I never saw anyone improve on it. So therefore, it's my opinion that Marcons is something that cohabitates in your nose in some of us, just like we have bacteria live in our skin, and it's not a problem. Dr. Neil Nathan has a similar viewpoint. So I no longer test for Marcons, and if I get somebody that brings in a test and it's there, I don't bother with it. I don't think that's what the issue is, okay? And, probably what happened is the reason you got the enterococcus showing up there now is that they created imbalance by being on the gentamicin nose spray, which allowed these other germs to go up there. I would have to investigate this, but probably for the enterococcus bacterial infection, I might be looking to see if I could find some type of probiotics for the nose. And I would have to look into what that is. I don't know that off the top of my head. In other words, you could rebalance the natural makeup of germs that live in the nose, just like we rebalance the natural makeup of germs that live in our intestines with probiotics, okay? All right. So in other words, I wouldn't waste your time going after Marcons. That's not the issue. It doesn't make a difference even if you get rid of it. And in some people, you can't get rid of it. Some people you can temporarily, and then it seems to always come back. So that's not what the issue is, okay? And again, people that treat chronic Lyme disease acknowledge that as well too, okay? Like me and Dr. Krista and Dr. Nathan as well, okay? Anyhow, there you go. All right, good luck to you, Cheryl. So if you want to see more about my opinion of Dr. Shoemaker's approach on Marcons and his whole protocol, and why it's not a relevant model when you are living with tick-borne infections, is take a look here. Let's see, let me see where I tucked this one in. Well, I've made some comments somewhere. Where did that article go? Hold on here a minute. Not there. Oh, wrong category. Hold on a minute. Oh, here it is. This article called Shoemaker Mold in Sears Approach is Wrong in Chronic Lyme Disease. Take a look at that if you need some more information. Okay? All right. All right. Good luck to you, Lisa. Hold on here, everyone. This is from Jim. Hi, Jim. Let's hail Dr. Ross. Thank you for the volume of information you provide to all of us. You're welcome. About 10 months ago, my wife started having symptoms mainly of memory loss and severe fatigue. Completely not anything like her at all. Cognitive tests were all negative. Since then, she's experienced racing heart, severe anxiety, entire body tingling, brain fog, ants crawling under skin sensation, temperature dysregulation, etc. Spoke to a good friend who has the 3 Bs, and she convinced us to have IGeneX testing per your protocols. We are waiting for results. It's agony. We plan on signing up for an educational appointment as soon as we have the results and going from there. Is there anything that she can take or to temp down the symptoms in the interim? If positive for Lyme because of memory loss, would you recommend ceftriaxone, IM, or just aggressive antibiotic? Again, it's amazing how generous you are with your info. Huge thank you, Jim. Jim, I'm sorry. It's disheartening to see that happen with our family members, and very, very concerning as well too. So when I see this kind of complex that you're describing, there's a lot of neurologic symptoms. So it's not just dementia. There's the anxiety, the tingling, brain fog, ants crawling is a neurologic symptom. Those are what you just listed here. Those are things that make me think of Bartonella more than they make me think of Borrelia, which is Lyme. Okay. So let me just talk there for a minute. So, and Bartonella you can get through tick bites, but you also can get through other like mites can spread it, fleas can spread it. There's other vectors that spread it. In fact, some of the experts in the area at the Centers for Disease Control have publicly said that they think that Bartonella is rather ubiquitous, meaning it's in many of us. And it may be there not even for having been bitten by a tick, but through other vectors. And some of us, including me, wonder if although there is limited science suggesting it could be transmitted by ticks, there is also the other possibility that's what's happening with Bartonella is that if you happen to get a tick bite and it transmits Borrelia, it may activate Bartonella that's already in you, okay? So Bartonella is known for giving a lot of neurocognitive and neuropsych issues. So that brain fog, odd neurologic symptoms like tingling, things crawling on you, tremors and shakes can be part of it as well too. Dementia could be part of that as well too, all right? I will also admit there can sometimes be Borrelia. The distinguishing factor between what Borrelia looks like and Bartonella looks like is Borrelia often will have a quality of wandering symptoms, like wandering joint pain, wandering neuropathy, like one day it's here on your hand, next day it's down on your foot, okay? Those kind of symptoms as well. Both could lead to dementia as well too, okay? So when you get something going on like this and you have dementia, a lot of that is due to the immune cells in the brain called microglia getting inflamed, which then lead to all of this. And they release chemicals called cytokines. This is cytokines that give a lot of the neurologic symptoms, the fatigue, even some of the peripheral neurologic symptoms as well too. While you're waiting, there's some supports that you could do to see if it would make a difference. Number one, lower these inflammation chemicals called cytokines to help calm some of that agitation in the microglia in the brain, but also throughout the whole immune system. And so for that, I like using curcumin. Curcumin is a component of turmeric. It's quite effective at getting inside white blood cells and limiting their ability to make cytokines, including the microglia up in the brain, okay? And so the product I like for that, I like a liposomal type and a liposomal glutathione, or I'm sorry, liposomal, not glutathione yet, I'm going there next. A liposomal curcumin is a product made by Thorne called Thorne Curcumin Phytosome, 500 milligram pill, and one pill 3 times a day. In addition, there is a very good antioxidant that is useful at repairing injury within the nervous system and injury within every one of our cells, but also helping to lower these inflammation chemicals called cytokines. And that would be to be on some glutathione. And I like being on a liposomal variety, just like I like being a liposomal curcumin. I like the liposomal for both of them because it increases their absorption. And the product that I like using for that is a product called Trifortify by Researched Nutritionals. That's TRI-FORTIFY. Okay. The other things that the other thing that can often occur when you get situations like this is there can be injury to the mitochondria, the energy production factories in the brain, making it hard for the nerves to function correctly. They don't have enough energy, okay? So helping the mitochondria work better by fixing injuries to their membranes and providing micronutrients can sometimes be helpful too. And for that, I like using a product by Research Nutritionals called ATP 360, and that is 3 pills 1 time a day on that, okay? In the visit that I would have with you, and I'm more than glad to help you here, especially when it comes to dementia really getting bad, we need to think broadly about a number of things. And some of these ideas I'm about ready to discuss with you come out of what is known as the Bredesen protocol for dementia and Alzheimer's dementia, but they still apply here. Number one, getting sleep can be very helpful if you can. Getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, scheduling time to do that, and trying to go to bed at the same time each night. Take alcohol and caffeine out and try to sleep in a dark room, meaning stop having caffeine probably before noon each day. And alcohol, though, might get you asleep at night, will not let you get into deep sleep. So you want to get sleep, okay? Number 2, movement of any kind that can be tolerated, that doesn't make a person more fatigued or more achy, by walking or even exercise can help. Number 3, being on an anti-inflammatory diet like a Mediterranean style diet can be useful as well too. Number 4, believe it or not, having social interaction can be helpful because it stimulates the mind sometimes. Now, it may be too early to do that right now, okay? We want to look at the possibility of infections like you're doing with the tick-borne infections. The other thing to consider that could be an added factor in here sometimes is having mold toxicity. Mold toxicity can agitate all of this as well too. The way to look for mold toxicity I like to use is to look at a urine test kit from a company called Real Time Labs to see if you're spilling out urine mycotoxins that should not be there, okay? And I'll be glad to explore more of this when we have a visit as well too, but those are some thoughts, okay? All right. Good luck, Jim. Good luck to your wife too. Hello, Mandy. Let's see. Went undiagnosed for 48 years. Biggest issues are ongoing burning pain everywhere in the body and cognitive dysfunction. Had 2 years on and off of antibiotics, had to stop due to high liver enzymes. Now, if I take any antibiotic, for instance, a urinary tract infection, my whole body reacts violently, causing more pain, sleep, fatigue, severe malaise. Can you suggest herbal supplement I could take to consider first? Okay. So, So I guess what I'm not understanding from your question is, in addition to antibiotics and reacting severely, do you react severely to anything else? So have you become medicine sensitive, okay, and even supplement sensitive? If you are not medicine sensitive or supplement sensitive, supplement sensitive, to help heal the nerves, I would do a few things. I would do the same 3 things that I just suggested in that last question. I'd get on curcumin, the thorn, curcumin phytosome, 500 milligram pill, 1 pill 3 times a day to calm the inflammation. I would get on glutathione to calm the inflammation and start healing those nerves from the inside. And I would also get on the ATP 360 to help repair some of the injured mitochondria that's going to make it hard for your body to operate, okay? Now, I'm not clear if you can tolerate that, though, because the story you're telling me makes me wonder if you become sensitive to a lot of things, too. If you have become sensitive to a lot of things, then you need to start wondering about mast cell activation. You also need to consider whether there might be some agitation or a turning on of an area of your brain called the limbic system. And the limbic system is a part of your brain that controls sleep, desire to reproduce, eating. But if it gets locked in an on position, as it can sometimes in these illnesses, you just become overly reactive to everything. It's more of a neurologic reactivity as well, too. All right. So I would urge you to look at some of the materials I've written about mast cell activation, especially if you're reacting to everything, not just prescription antibiotics, okay? In there, also, if the story you have that I make in that mast cell article is to make sure you treat for intestinal yeast. I wonder if being on all these antibiotics over time led to too many yeast in your intestines, and too many yeast can trigger your mast cells to be very active and be reactive. Okay, so look at the articles I've written on mast cell activation. I would also look at doing, especially if you're reacting to everything, consider doing some limbic system retraining. And what you can do for limbic system retraining is there's a program called the Gupta method. Or Gupta program, I should say. There's another one called Any-Hopper Dynamic Neural Retraining System. And then finally, there is more recently a program called Primal Trust. You just need to go look at their websites and see which one resonates more with you. The one that has the most academic research is the Gupta program, and their independent data, not from what customers said to them, but literally research data, would suggest on average about 50% improvements just by doing their type of program. Primal Trust and Any-Hopper both claim similar improvements. However, they don't have independent research that backs that. That just hasn't been done, okay? My preference tends to be the Gupta method, all right? If you want to read more about what I just described here, it's actually, I think I've got a video article on this. Let me just show you. Let's see. I want to go here. Decide where I put it here. Yeah. See this article here. It's primarily a video article, but how to manage extreme sensitivity in Lyme disease or mold toxicity. Okay. All right. It's there. All right. Good luck to you, Mandy. So actually, Mandy, the other thing too, because there's part of this, to really give you the best advice, I need to ask a lot more questions and have some understanding about your other sensitivities and what you've tried, et cetera. So, in this format, I can only give limited advice because I don't have the full picture. But if I had a full picture, I might even be able to give you better advice than what I just did. If you are interested, and many of you may know, I offer a service. I'm going to do a screen share here. So this is my clinic website called Marty Ross MD Healing Arts at martyrossmd.com. To learn more about the type of services I offer, look under my appointments and the Learn and Book Now. And there are 2 ways you can see me. One is I could become your doctor that manages your prescriptions, diagnoses officially, and even orders tests. That's called a full medical service. The other way that I can visit with you is to do an educational consult where I'm giving you advice, but I'm not your prescriber. I can give you an idea what I think the diagnoses are, but I can't make a formal diagnosis. And I can recommend various herbs and supplements that might be helpful for you as well too. And I can suggest testing. This is useful for people that can't come out here to see me, but want information to help them understand better what to do, and even get a note they can take to their doctor that they could use to help see if their doctor can give them some help, even primary care doctors, okay? The full medical service, you have to see me at least one time in my Seattle practice. And if you are a Washington State resident, follow-up visits can be done by telemedicine. The problem is, for out of Washington State residents, you would have to fly in each visit to see me, which usually is going to work out to about once every 2 months. The reason for that is medical boards in other states require that I have a license in those states if I'm going to be talking with you when you are in those states. So if you're a California resident, I can't do telemedicine with you without being licensed in California if you're in California, because I'm not licensed there, okay? But these are two ways. So I can give you kind of an expanded version of what I do in these Lyme Q&A webinars we have as part of an education and medical consult. So look at that. At this point, everyone, I have plenty of openings. I'm still new to reopening my practice here in Seattle. So I have spots to help you and welcome the opportunity to do that with you as well too, okay? All right, let's go back here. I don't know how long I'll be that, have many of those spots, but right now, because it's still relatively new, it's not that hard to get in and see me, okay? All right, good luck to you, Manny. Hello, Brenda. Let's see, thoughts on nuclear stress tests being injected with a dose of isotope that have an effect on Lyme. Thanks for your help. So I've had people that have had their stress test when they use the isotopes, and I haven't seen any decline or injury as a result of that. Okay, all right. So I don't discourage it. I think if that kind of information is needed, then I would go ahead and get the isotope. Okay. Good luck to you, Brenda. Hello, Anne. I see you said hi, Marty, there. So I'm glad you're here. All right. Hello, Nicola. Let's see. Do you have any thoughts on creatine supplementation for someone still suffering from severe fatigue and brain fog after diagnosis and antibiotic treatment for Lyme and co-infections? If not creatine, do you have a recommendation for supplementation for purpose of improving energy? Thank you. All right. So yeah, it's quite an interesting area. I've actually been studying it. I mean, one of my interests outside of Lyme disease is longevity. I mean, because I'm getting to be an older guy, so it's a personal interest, but also it's fascinating, and I've discovered in studying it some ideas that I am incorporating into my practice. All right, so let's talk about one of those. One of those is creatine. So creatine, everyone, is a chemical that traditionally has been used by bodybuilders, right? Because in theory, it can help build body mass. But let me talk to you how it works. So creatine, so as I mentioned tonight, you have inside your cells are mitochondria, all right? And every one of our cells have mitochondria. They're the power plants that give our cells energy. Now, what is interesting when it comes to the brain makes up 2% of your body weight, but it is where 20% of ATP and mitochondria are made. ATP is the energy molecule. Okay, so 2% of your body mass, but it uses 20% of your body's energy. That's pretty profound, all right? The other big place, I mean, every one of our cells has mitochondria. So by some estimates, it's like 300 to 400 mitochondria in a cell. But your other big mitochondrial sink is your muscles. Your muscles are a big mitochondrial organ as well, too. Now, when you're making energy, this substance called ATP is made, And if it's used, it is turned, after it's used for energy, it's turned back into a substance called ADP instead of ATP, okay? And the difference between ATP and ADP, one of them is the number of phosphate chemicals that are on them. Creatine is a phosphate donor, and it gets into the muscles and even into the brain and donates phosphate to this spent ADP. So it's a way of recycling quickly your ATP so that you keep these ATP levels high, okay? Now, the reason it's used for bodybuilding is that if you can recycle your ATP, your dollar bills, so you can use them again more quickly, guess what? You can do more reps so you can build more muscle mass. So instead of doing like 10 bicep curls for 3 sets, you might be able to do 12 for 4 sets, and you can build more muscle mass that way. All right. Now, between the brain and your muscle mass, your muscles have a greater affinity for creatine than your brain does. A dose that can eventually saturate your cells with phosphate is for your muscles is to take 5 grams a day of creatine. But because the muscles will eat that stuff up first, there's not going to be enough to get to the brain to power it up as well too. So if you're trying to get at cognition and helping your thinking by improving brain energy, then you want to take creatine 10 grams a day. All right. That seems to give you the ability to get it up in the brain. Okay. And so, there's a number of products out there. I know Thorne has a creatine product. I'm going to be encouraging working with Phimologist, my partner, to get some of that and start recommending it in some of my writings and with my patients. But I think it's a really good idea because what it's doing is, even up in the brain, it's helping to keep your ATP levels higher by recycling used ADP so you have more energy to think. Okay, so that's how it works. All right. In addition, to help with fatigue and brain fog, I also consider repairing not just recycling your ATP, but repairing the structure of your mitochondria that tend to get injured in time and just don't work as well. And what does that really well is the ATP 360 that I mentioned earlier tonight. It's made up of phospholipid mix that repairs the membranes of the mitochondria. It has micronutrients in it. And in addition, it has a substance in it called pyroquinolene quinone, or commonly called PQQ. And PQQ promotes the growth of more mitochondria to power yourself up. Okay. All right. And then finally, especially if people are having a lot of brain fog and fatigue, I'd like to add in liposomal glutathione to that. Having an antioxidant on board like glutathione will repair your mitochondria from the inside, but also act as a good antioxidant to keep them from getting injured in the future. And the way I do that is a teaspoonful 1 time a day. All right. All right. Hope that gives you some useful information. Thanks for asking that question. Actually, I'm going to just look here for a minute and see something. Nah, I'll look later. All right. Hello, Angie. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thank you for your precious time. If one has S-marcescens bacteria and yeast in the gut, can they be addressed simultaneously? Also, are antibiotics the best choice for the S-marcescens? Should other killing agents be paused while going after those 2 things? So, Angie, to better answer that, I need to know more what's going on with your other components of your gut microbiome. So sometimes if you have one germ, like an S-marcescens that's high, the way you get it down is by increasing levels of some of the other germs. And I just don't know what your stool looks like to even comment there. So sometimes it's just a matter of working with probiotics and being on high fiber foods to feed healthy bacteria so they grow and take over the territory occupied by that S-marcescens. In addition, being on polyphenols is also another useful way to feed the good bacteria. So sometimes when you have bacterial dysbiosis, which means imbalance in good bacteria. And imbalance means you've got low numbers of some kinds and you've got elevations of some other kinds. The first approach to dealing with that is to work with a good probiotic that will help both seed and plant the intestines with healthy bacteria, but also help promote healthy levels of bacteria through the metabolites that those probiotics help produce in the intestines. So for that, I usually will like using something called Metabolic Daily by Pendulum, which has 5 different bacteria, of which one is a keystone bacteria called Akkermansia. Akkermansia maintains the healthy mucin lining of your intestines. And in addition, there are 4 butyrate and short-chain fatty acid producers in that probiotic product. It's these short-chain fatty acids, including butyrate, that are the chemical messengers that go to the healthy bacteria in your gut so they grow better. Those are also the chemical messengers that talk with your brain to make it work better, your heart to work better, your immune system to work better. Okay, so I like working with a good probiotic as a foundation. Secondly, you want to feed the good bacteria, and there's 2 ways to do that. One is high fiber. We'll do that. We call those prebiotics, okay? Or another way to do it, just as important, is to take a chemical group called polyphenols. Polyphenols are chemicals that are found in colorful fruits and vegetables, especially things that are purple, dark red, and blue. So your blueberries, your raspberries, your red cabbage, your red onions, emphasizing those kind of foods in your diet. And if you can't emphasize them, you can get a polyphenol pill. And there's a product we carry called Polyphenol Booster, made by Pendulum, which is the same company that makes the Metabolic Daily. And that Polyphenol Booster, is, oh God, I'm going to blank now. I'm even seeing the plant. It's a fruit that's in it that primarily that makes it, the polyphenols, it'll come to me. But anyhow, that's what I like using for that. And the prebiotic I like using is something made by, called Mega Pre is what I like using for that too. Okay. So those are some thoughts for you there. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Angie. So if you want more interest or more information about how to maintain and restore a healthy intestinal microbiome, take a look at, I have a pretty big article on this one. This article here called Your Guide to a Healthy Intestinal Microbiome, Even on Antibiotics. Now you'll see here that I do recommend also at times you should be on an herbal antimicrobial to knock down some of those abnormalities. But I can't say whether I would do that yet without knowing what else is going on with your gut system. Okay. All right. If you do want, I would be glad to look at that with you within one of my educational consult visits. If you would send me your test results, I could get a better understanding by looking at that. And also I would ask you a lot of questions about what's going on in your health to understand how we focus on this better too. But I'd be glad to do that if you want to sign up for one of those. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Em. Let's see. Do you have more information on whether or not the IGeneX FISH test for Babesia is coming up with false positives? This is the first time I have had a positive test of any kind. You know, this is one of those things that's on my to-do list, except I just keep getting diverted away. I'm starting, I need to talk with Dr. Shaw, who is the head of IGeneX. I'm increasingly seeing coming out of their lab just a positive fish, but no antibodies. Even the genus is negative. And it just has me questioning, are they over-reporting somehow? So I need to, no, I don't have any more on that. I still need to do that. And so I'll probably, actually, now you're bringing it up, I'll probably try to give her a call tomorrow and see if we can figure that out. Okay? All right. Thanks for the question. Sorry, I don't have an answer. So the other thing I would say about that too, is any test can be a false positive. Even if the Babesia fish has a rare false positive rate, that doesn't mean it couldn't be false in you. So it's true. I'm usually, you have to look at a test result is one clue. You also have to look at the person, and if they have symptoms suggestive of the disorder, they reinforce each other, okay? But let's say you get a Babesia fish that's positive, and you have absolutely good energy levels, you have no night sweats, you don't have anything that looks like Babesia. In that case, this could be a false positive, okay? All right. Hello, Cheryl. Hold on here a minute. I'm just going to take a quick sip. Okay, let's see. I'm considering methylene blue and wanted to ask if it's safe to take while on SSRIs. Is there a risk of serotonin syndrome even at low doses, or is it ever used safely under supervision? Thank you. So in theory, you have to be concerned with methylene blue because it has an effect. It can be what's known as an MAO inhibitor as one of its actions, which can raise serotonin. And if you happen to be on antidepressant medicines or other medicines that raise serotonin, in theory, there can be a concern. Now, did you hear I said in theory? Okay, all right. In my practice, what I have tended to do is for persons that are not able to get off their antidepressant medicines, I'm okay. My practice has been to use methylene blue at 25 milligrams twice a day, sometimes 50 milligrams twice a day, with somebody on SSRIs that are no higher than 50% of the max dose, right? So for instance, I think Prozac these days we can go up to 80 milligrams. So like if somebody's on Prozac, I don't want them over 40 milligrams as an example. Now I have to double check what the max dose is, but 50% max dose, and I have not gotten to any trouble doing that, okay? All right. I know that Dr. Richard Horowitz, also notes in his practice, and he used a lot of methylene blue to counter the effects of dapsone in his protocols. And he also would use the methylene blue and leave people on their antidepressant medicines as long as they weren't on high doses of those antidepressant medicines. So it can be done. It just need to work with a provider that feels comfortable doing that with you and be monitored. So yeah, okay. Good luck to you. Hello, Em. Let's see. My LMD sent in blood to Red Lab in Belgium to test for Borrelia. The phage result was relapsing fever group. The LMD told me to use the same treatment that I would take for Babesia, but I'm not sure if I really have Babesia. What is your opinion of phage test? And what is the treatment for relapsing fever? I do not have fevers, but it is my understanding that I could have relapsing fever strain and not have fevers. Is that true? Okay, so Red Labs in Belgium is doing this test called a phage test. And what a phage test is, or what phages are viruses that will be in you whenever you have a certain bacteria infection. So there are specific phage viruses that occur when we have Borrelia in us. And there are specific phage viruses that occur when we have the different strains of relapsing fever in us, okay? And so Red Labs is able to detect these phages. And supposedly if these phages are there, that means the infection that phage goes with is in you too, all right? Now they have done some limited validation studies, and I'm still not clear whether I think it's valid or not. Number one, whether their accuracy is correct. Number two, it is true that in some people, relapsing fever can produce chronic symptoms that don't have fevers that go up and down. But I'm thinking that, in my opinion, I don't think it's the big issue that Bread Lab is making it out to be. Even if it is the treatment for treating relapsing fever, Borrelia, it's a Borrelia, is not to use Babesia medicines. It's to use the same types of medicines we might use against Lyme, Borrelia. Okay, so I don't know why they're recommending to do it this way. All right. Okay. Good luck to you. Thanks. Let's see. Em says, I'm getting IVIG for autoimmune small fiber peripheral neuropathy, so antibody tests are not helpful. No, I understand. So so to do an immunoblot or an IFA test would not be good because you're being given antibodies. That's what IVIG is. So thanks for raising that point, Em. Hello, Charles. Dr. Ross, is taking glutathione while doing a urine mycotest a good idea, or it give you an inaccurately high result compared to a previous test where I didn't take glutathione? So that's interesting. I know that. All right. So first of all, there are some doctors out there that suggest that you try to provoke your system to release more mycotoxins so that you will pee out more of these. Okay. All right. And I know that Dr. Krista, I think, recommends glutathione. I think Neil Nathan does too. To me, it doesn't make any sense, right? Because glutathione is your detox chemical used by the liver, and mold toxins are not processed correctly by the liver. So I have never quite gotten that as to why they recommend it. All right. Now, they also say that you should only be doing that if you're going to do a real-time test, because glutathione will interfere with the methodology that is done through Mosaic and Vibrant, because they use a different testing technique. Okay. All right. In my opinion, if you're going to try to do a provoked test, the best thing to do is to sweat or to heat up. So you might sit in a hot bath the night before you collect your urine. I mean, not the whole night, but for a period of time, collect your urine, because that act of heating up will move toxins out of your tissues. That's my preferred way to do it. Okay. All right. Now, it's not going to give you an inaccurately high result. It's just that you are, and again, I don't understand why they're using glutathione here. That's my opinion. Okay. Lisa says I skipped her question. Lisa, I'm sorry, I don't remember that. Okay, so I apologize if I missed it. I know I did click for something to go away, but it was too small. It didn't look like a complete question to me, so I apologize for that. Christine says, can you get Bartonella from fleas and then also get the typical bullseye rash? So Bartonella, so the bullseye rash is something that occurs when you have Borrelia, which is Lyme. We don't see the bullseye rash in Bartonella, okay? Now, if you meant to write Borrelia, and if you meant to say, could it be transmitted by fleas? Maybe. Traditionally, we think that the main organism that transmits it is ticks. There are limited scientific studies that shows that fleas, mites, and biting flies evidently carry Borrelia, but we have no proof they transmit Borrelia, but maybe so. I do think in my practice, I at one time had a person that got a lot of mosquito bites, and then within about a week came down with symptoms of acute Lyme. I do wonder in her case, just because the story, was it transmitted by the mosquito bites, but maybe it was coincidental. I don't know. Okay. And then, yes, can fleas transmit Bartonella? I believe that fleas are one of the vehicles that will carry it. Okay, and can transmit it too. Okay, all right. All right, everyone. That's it for me for tonight. I've had a good time being with you here, and I look forward to helping you again next week. So I hope you'll sign up for next week's webinar when I send out the email tomorrow morning. Again, tomorrow morning's email will have a synopsis of what we talked about. But if you want to use the timestamps that are on there, you actually have to go to YouTube, and I provide a link for that where you can use YouTube to skip around. And I'm starting to send out with the emails a list of key products or products with key ingredients that we discussed, because I know sometimes I get messages from people wondering, well, what's the product I'm supposed to take for that? So that will be part of the email tomorrow morning as well too. And for those of you that are interested in supporting me, buying from phimologists, and my relationship with them is one way to support my ability to keep doing these webinars. So I'd appreciate if you do that as well too. All right. Good night, everyone.